Perfect. All right, we are here. It's August 4th, 2012. This is Jeff Bender along with Stan Krahn. And Stan Krahn is very active in the Edmonds Museum. And he's going to have a conversation today. And this video is a part of the Oral History Project of the Edmonds Museum and the Edmonds Woodley High School History Club. The museum will keep a copy of this recording for the purposes of historical research. And we want to thank Stan for being here today. One of the purposes of the museum is to collect oral history of people, particularly in the Edmonds School District boundary. So Stan, when you were born, your parents looked at you and they named you Stan. Where did that come from?
Well, my mother wanted to name me after my Uncle Charlie, but Aunt Dora got mad. And she said, "What do you want to name him that for?" And Mother got mad and named me after a sailor relative, Stanley Schumacher.
Oh.
When Mother was mad, you paid attention.
Oh, okay. Oh, God. So, Stan, tell me about where you were. Where were you when you were born? Where did you grow up? Where were your young years when you were a kid? Where did you grow up?
Greenwood District,
Greenwood.
basically, yeah. 3rd and 74th.
And Greenwood bumped up, so a lot of the kids who live in Greenwood, most likely, that's part of Ballard.
Yeah. Actually, Greenwood was a dividing district of districts between Lincoln and Ballard.
Oh, I never knew that.
And
Lincoln High School on the east side, Ballard High School on the west?
yeah,
Okay.
that's in the high school level. Now, I went
Yeah.
to Greenwood grade school,
Okay.
and a good portion of the kids I went to the grade school with went to Lincoln because they lived on the other side of Greenwood.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And so, in your early years, do you remember much about your grade school remembrances? I mean, what was your grade school called?
It was a Greenwood grade school.
Greenwood grade
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Kessel was the principal.
Oh, okay. Were you, you know, a lot of high school students will be watching this from time to time. You know, growing up in a grade school in your era, did you guys? What do you remember about grade school? Was it an easy thing or a fun thing or, wow? Do you remember much about grade school?
Oh yeah, I remember. I wasn't anything spectacular.
Yeah.
I went to school. A lot of the mothers belonged to the PTA. My mother didn't, but I always knew she was home.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Today you don't find mothers home much anymore when the kids are in school.
That's for sure.
No.
How many kids in your family?
Well, my brother was 13 years older than me, and I had a sister.
Uh-huh.
She died when she was 10. That's 6 years before I was born.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
just have the one brother I remember.
Yeah. I mean, you went into law enforcement. Were you an easy kid to raise when you were growing up?
I was spoiled because Mother didn't expect to have another child, and she had lost her favorite daughter.
Oh.
And I came along, and yeah.
Oh,
I had the best of a
you
poor
had the
world.
best.
The best of a poor world.
Oh, that is cool.
Depression and all.
Yeah. So then you were you lived in Ballard really during the Depression years. People talk about the Depression years in Ballard in a lot of different ways. One of the things they talk about is the closeness of families and friendships and things like that. Were there any types of games and get-togethers that you remember that were really important?
We played in the streets.
Played in the streets. Yeah.
My father was a piano tuner repairman. He had a shop in back.
Oh.
And we had a piano dolly. We used to swing that on the end of a rope with a kid on the end of it.
Oh,
on the street.
Oh,
didn't have cars on the street in the Depression. Nobody could afford to own one.
Yeah.
We didn't have one.
Yeah. Oh my God. Ballard High School has a long and colorful history. I think some of their school colors are orange. I think they're the Beavers or something like that.
The school colors are like Lincoln, reversed though, black and red.
You're right. Yeah.
And the other's red and black.
What do you remember about high school for you? On the academic side, were there subject areas that you enjoyed more than others?
Oh, it was funny. I loved math, but I couldn't understand it.
What was it about you loved? You loved it? Was there something? What was it? that you
Oh,
loved?
math always interested me, but I went back to college later on, and they had the new math, and I couldn't understand it. I had to go back to what I learned in high school. So, and,
Oh God! In your days as a young guy in Ballard, teenagers today, there's all kinds of things that they do that's unique to this time period. As a teenager in Ballard, was there Friday night dances, or I mean, what were some of the things that teenagers did?
well, I was
in your
not
Ballard
a
days?
dance person, but they did have dances near the Jane Addams School.
Oh, okay.
Jane or John Adams School in Ballard.
Maybe John.
John, I think
it
it
was
was.
John Adams.
And they've torn it down since, the original school.
When people talk about Ballard, I always hear about, I think it's Norwegian and Swedish ancestry, and fishermen. I mean, how big do you recall the fishing industry being, like your friends and your buddies and families? Was that really?
Well, as a teenager, I worked in a grocery store in Ballard.
Oh.
I had a paper out before that, and then I got this job for $20 a week in a grocery store.
That's pretty good money, actually.
Yeah, it was six days a week, 12-hour days.
Oh my God. Sorry about that. It was sort of okay.
That's all right. I felt like a rich man.
Oh,
And yeah, $20 a week was sure better than $15 a month.
Oh my. Yeah, exactly. Oh
But
my word.
yeah, Ballard was. I worked for other grocery stores delivering.
Uh-huh.
A local grocery store, two of them deliver their groceries. And people in those days didn't go to the store and pick things out like they do today. You went to the store, particularly the neighborhood stores, handed him a list of what you want, and he went and got it for you.
Oh, really?
And if he liked you, you got a better grade of stuff than.
No kidding.
But I know the one grocer, he carried the fishermen, a couple of fishermen.
Yeah.
They'd be gone for 6 months, and the family could charge up their groceries there.
Oh.
And the minute those guys got off the boat, the first thing they did was pay the bill.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the local, a way to kind of create your
Corner groceries, you'd call them.
credit.
Yeah.
And so, oh my word, that must have been huge. Without that, I mean, during those
Yeah.
times when the guys were
Well, the
gone.
depression, you know, they were up there in Alaska and not back for 6 months.
Oh my.
That's where the store owner carried him.
Jeez.
And it was good business for him.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Eventually, we're going to work our way down in our conversation to talk about Mountlake Terrace
Yeah.
and its unique history and your role as a police officer. So, was that one of your first jobs? I was going to ask you about some of the jobs you had. So,
When I
worked
got
in the
out of
store?
high school, I worked in Lake Washington shipyards for a year.
Oh, you did?
And that was the end of the war.
Yeah. Okay.
And the draft passed me up.
Ah, okay.
So then I was thinking about drafting and engineering,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I was doing in the shipyard, drafting.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody coming home from the war had points better than I to get into college. So I went to work with my father in the piano tuning business.
Oh. Do you
I've
play?
been raised in it, more or less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you play the piano?
Well, my amusement, not necessarily
Yeah,
anybody
yeah.
else's.
Wow. So a secondary job that you had was piano tuning. So
Yeah,
your dad showed you
I
the ropes.
worked with my father for 13 years. I worked for various stores,
Yeah.
and then Dad died in 1956.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw an opportunity. I lived in Mountlake Terrace since '53. I saw an opportunity to get into the reserves with a friend there.
Yeah.
And so I got to be 59, and I hired on full time. The old bit about you can't beat City Hall, join them.
Wow. Mountlake Terrace in 1950, 52. So you moved as an adult up then to Mountlake
Yeah,
Terrace? I mean, and what year was that again?
53.
What was there in 1953? I mean,
The main blower, well, there were quite a few, the cement block houses,
Yes.
two-bedroom block houses.
yeah.
And they built those up until 1954, from about 1949 to 54. And then they started building wooden frame houses.
What was the reason on the cement block houses? It's the very, very unique. Some
Cheap
parts
material, I think.
Okay. And
The cement block, everybody wants to call them cinder block, but it's cement block.
houses.
The floors are all asbestos tile, brown asbestos tile. That was cheap.
Yeah. Oh my.
I think a lot of it was left over from wartime products. It's like the flooring.
Probably. Like
Because
barracks.
I know
and
there was a
things.
lot of military buildings that had that same flooring in there.
Oh. Where was there a city hall right off? Do you remember when you
City
first
Hall
moved in?
started, it was just a little 2-bedroom block house on 61st, which is gone now.
Hmm.
And then they moved up to 232nd and 57th, another 2-bedroom block house. And they added a library on the front and an office for the chief. The block house was the police department. And they added a big wing on the back for the city hall.
Oh, I see. Did it include a court?
Yeah.
The traffic court?
Yeah. That was part of the city hall.
So you started with the police, you started as a volunteer roughly around 1956. So law enforcement. So did you say you went into the reserves somewhere in there?
Oh, that's what it was. I traded.
Police reserves.
I had traded at the gas station down there, and the guy was a reserve, and he talked me into joining him on Wednesday night. So that's where I got started.
What? Wow. So as a reserve officer, would they give you like off hours and things when they just couldn't get coverage?
You worked at 7 at night to 1 in the morning, once a week.
Okay, once a week.
Yeah. Or maybe more often if it was an opening.
Yeah, yeah.
Originally there was about 20 reserve officers. When I went there, it was only about 10.
Yeah.
And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, you had generally a student dispatcher, and the officer went on the road. There was only one officer on the road in Graveyard.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And you guys, I mean, when I ask a dumb tech, and then as far as like communication, you use the police car radios.
Yeah.
Is that shortwave? Is that what that was? Like
Yeah.
Shortwave system.
Yeah.
And
we were on the same frequency as Edmonds.
oh, you were.
And the same frequency as Kirkland and Houghton across the lake.
So you could listen to the chatter of
You hear this stuff, yeah.
So you could hear the Edmonds chatter or the Kirkland chatter.
Oh, yeah.
And how did you distinguish? I think today, if I'm an Edmonds police officer, they use the term Edward, 4 Edward 1 or something.
Well, yeah.
Is that kind
we
of...
weren't that fancy in those days. You used your personnel number.
Oh, okay.
Mine was 478. And then the 10 code, which like 10-8 as you're in service.
Oh, okay.
A variety of codes all the way up to, I think 1054 was called a coroner, and 1084 was reserve a hotel room and a bath. Ridiculous.
Someone told me I think 1036 is a time check.
Yeah.
Something like that. And so, but one officer in that late graveyard shift, that must have, because that's a pretty, I mean, although it
Well,
was
we were
rural,
about 2 square miles in those days.
Okay, because I couldn't imagine.
Now Mountlake Terrace is about 4 square miles.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, you were alone.
Yeah.
And you played the game by what you could do.
Yeah.
And Edmonds has a loan. They had an officer. They generally had a sergeant and an officer on Graveyard. Doug Krahn and Dick Moran.
Oh, okay.
And at 1 o'clock in the morning, when I started dispatching, part-time dispatching as well, in like 1957, and they would call me up at 1 in the morning and say, we're going on the road. And I'd flip a switch, and all phone calls would come into Mountlake Terrace, and I'd dispatch the Edmonds car until the morning shift started.
In real unique or tough situations, was it okay to consult with an Edmonds officer for assistance if there were like tough situations?
Well, yeah, but they didn't know where Mountlake Terrace was anyway.
Oh, really? Was that a challenge?
I didn't know where Edmonds was when I got down to it.
I mean, honestly, because things were so rural at some point.
Yeah.
In 1956, if you were address, it might have been kind of difficult to find places if you needed another
Edmonds
officer.
only went to 9th in those days.
That's right. That's right. It was just the bowl up to 9th Avenue.
So if you didn't know the county numbers, you wouldn't find your way in Mountlake Terrace.
Wow. In this day and age, in the year 2012, high schools often will call 911 and get an officer. In those days, did high school administrators ever contact the police for help or assistance on things?
Once in a while.
Oh, they
Not
did?
very often.
Yeah.
They tried to handle it basically themselves.
Yeah. Wow.
Once in a while we get a call. I got to know them. I've always believed that know your people, know your merchants, know your people that you're dealing with, and get out of the car and talk to people. But that's my theory.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense, because then you'd build up relationships with people and organizations and neighborhoods and things of that sort. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
I met a lady one time on a bicycle theft, and we chatted for a long while. We became friends. Through the years, I heard about her from a gal that worked in the office, and she was widowed. She moved to Cle Elum. And then I heard she met a guy in a laundromat, and they got married. And because we had been friends, we were invited to the wedding reception. And the wedding reception was Barrick, who was the principal at Briar Elementary, or middle school.
Yeah.
And I knew him too.
Oh, everyone sort of knows you.
It was kind of fun.
Oh, my word.
Every time did I say Ellensburg? I meant Cle Elum.
Cle Elum, yeah.
And every time we go to Cle Elum, we stop and see Jim. And
oh, man, oh, man. You know, high school students will watch this video, and one of the things, a topic that's really difficult for a lot of high school students, whether it's Edmonds or Linwood or Meadowdale, is what existed in these four areas pre-1960, because a lot of change would happen after 60, but in the 50s and the time period you were a young man and you were in the reserves. Tell me about what you know about the beginnings of Mountlake Terrace, because it has sort of a unique beginning, something about an airport.
well, that's what I mentioned. This fellow wanted to build an airport down there. He drew up the plans, but he apparently couldn't get financing.
Yeah,
This is the story I heard.
yeah.
And we got a couple of brochures or a drawing of what he proposed.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember how we collected them anymore. It's been so many years.
Yeah, yeah.
But the lower shopping center of Mountlake Terrace was to be a terminal for the airport. But
Yeah.
that's in King County.
Oh.
The county line goes right through the middle there.
Oh, it does.
And so he had not been able to finance it, apparently. Lapeer and Peterson came in and bought the land and built the houses.
Oh.
Demand for low-income housing.
Yeah, yeah.
And a cement block house that was 20 by 30 feet, 2 bedrooms, $49.95
Really?
at $4,900.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
And for $10 more a month for 10 years, you could get appliances.
Oh my word. Well, I mean, if you think about it, and kind of when did this all happen? Was this like 49 or 51 or 52? What was that little window of time that you think you were saying, where the block houses, for example, 49 to 54, kind of?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
My present wife, she and her first husband, before he died, bought this 4-bedroom block house in 1952.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still there.
Oh my word.
Yeah. We move around a lot.
Oh man. Yeah. So from Mountlake Terrace, at the end of World War II, there was a need for families, and families needed to spread out, and cars made it possible for people to live in the suburbs and have jobs in the city, whether it be Ballard or Seattle and everything like that. And you probably witnessed quite a bit of change. So if you, as a young man, you joined the reserves, and then when you joined the reserves, what were the next steps that happened because then you so at some point you became like a full-time officer.
Well, it became, I was 32 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the maximum age for hiring a police department in those days.
What do you mean? You mean that was as old as you would go?
Yeah. If you were 33, you couldn't apply.
Why was that?
They had age limits on things.
Really?
I think basically they were looking at if you are older, you're not career oriented. Whereas if you're under 32, you're going to be there for 20, 25 years.
Ah. So the transition from being on the reserves, was it just you had built up enough experience years that at some point, because the city was getting bigger, they offered you full time?
Yeah. There was a 7-man department when I hired on.
Like how many sergeants, and is there a chief?
One sergeant, a chief, and one sergeant.
A chief, one sergeant, and then patrol officers.
Five patrol officers. Then about 15 reserve officers.
Yeah.
And the reserve officers worked the swing shift.
Oh, I see how that worked. Okay. Teenagers will probably. How good were the cars, and what were the cars like in those days?
Well,
were they pretty reliable?
Our first car was a '55 Chevrolet 4-door sedan.
Yeah.
If you see a picture of the cars in front of the museum, it's one of them sitting there.
Oh yeah.
And then we got a '57 Ford as the second car.
Uh-huh.
And then we got rid of the Chevrolet and got a '58 Ford, and then it went on and on with about 2 cars a year.
Okay, so and probably through local dealerships and things like that, and just swap them out or something. Or
yeah, Chevrolet. We had about everything: Dodge, Chevrolet, Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys have to do like ongoing training? Go to the gun ranges? I mean, what kind of training did you guys?
We had basic school.
Okay.
And that was put on by FBI agents.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we went to Fort Lewis. And in my day, we went for 2 weeks.
What did you do there?
Well,
what kind of training?
Accident training, shooting, the laws.
Yeah.
Various phases of law enforcement.
Yeah.
And then nowadays, it's 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, 2 weeks? Wow, that was compressed.
Yeah.
So every so often you'd have the 2-week training, like update or refresher, and your cars had radios, and a lot of young people, when they think about law enforcement, a lot of it, so much of it is your people skills, and in working with people. Is that fairly true, would you say?
Yes. This has been, if I was to hire somebody, and I did hire some people, with the chief, we worked on hiring. I looked for somebody that had retail experience.
Huh.
Sold gasoline, sold shoes, did anything retail, because he knows how to handle people, or he should.
Oh.
He's got the experience. But you have somebody that's been in high school and college and everything, don't have the people experience.
That's a good way to put it.
You can make a better patrolman. I don't say because you're educated in college you can't be a policeman. I'm saying that it's easier to transition into police work if you have some retail experience.
That makes sense. So that people are working with the public in a large fashion,
The reserve officers, the one that got me into it was part gas station owner. We had another gas station owner. And
always working with the public.
Yeah, dealing with the public.
You had experience working in a store at some point, and you have the natural temperament of you enjoy working with people, and so that was a natural thing for you.
Yeah.
Wow. In the years early years as a police officer, were there any kind of wild experiences that you recall? I mean, really challenging situations that would come up. It was pretty rural, but still.
Yeah, Mountlake Terrace was a bedroom community. Mm-hmm. And out of a bedroom community, you have family fights.
Oh.
And there was a lot of domestic problems we had.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of the people, they worked outside the city.
Yep. Yeah.
They worked at Boeing, or they might be in the service or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so evening was the time when you had your problems. Yeah.
So an ability to problem solve, to diffuse things, to talk with that person, and get them separated and talk them down, probably was really, really,
basically
really
tell them to grow up.
Having a sense of humor, you have a very good sense of humor. How helpful is that along in your police work?
Keeps you going. If you can't find something funny, no matter how drastic it is, you're going to fold up after a while.
Yeah, that's
weird funny at times.
Yeah, but that I could totally see it. That would be a huge way in working with people. So you started in '56 in the reserves, and wow, you went all the way up to 1990 when you finally did retire.
Yeah.
What other kinds of roles and did you serve? You were a dispatcher. You were on patrol. What other kinds of things were you asked to do in like sergeant or?
Well, I was a sergeant for a while.
Yeah.
And I think it was about 8 years, and then I was a captain for about the same at the end there. And of course, once you get into the upper echelon, then you're doing more paperwork than you are street work.
Yeah, yeah.
And we didn't have computers.
Yeah.
And they were starting with computers, and we were using the Linwood computer for payroll and our budget.
Oh.
But we only got a printout once a month. So then I kept books, so I'd know if we wanted to purchase something, how much money was in that account.
Oh, I see.
So I did a lot of bookkeeping that way.
Yeah.
And the roster, I had to keep the roster going. Guys wanted vacation or sick leave or something like that. And
you tracked a lot of that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And you have to make those assignments or get somebody in overtime at times. And
yeah. Police headquarters, was there a really small in that what did that look like over time?
Well,
how did that change?
As I mentioned, it was a 2-bedroom block house with an addition of a library and the chief's office.
Yeah.
And the main living room of this little house was your entryway.
Yeah.
Side door.
Yeah.
The kitchen was used as a photograph printing.
Mm-hmm.
The front bedroom was used as a booking area. The
Oh.
closet in between the front room and the front bedroom was the dispatch center.
Oh my word.
And,
all in one.
And then the back bedroom, and there was a bath there too. That was the cell.
Yeah.
We had one cell. And if we had a woman, we brought them to Edmonds because they had a couple of cells here.
Oh, I see. And if there was something much larger, you would probably have to take them to Everett or something.
Well, yeah, but you tried to avoid that because until you had some manpower, because when there's only one on the road and you have to go to Everett,
oh, you're
who's
right.
going to mind the store?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Wow. Would that happen from time to time? Were there ever situations where you had one in, but you needed more space and you were the one guy?
Well, either that or you call somebody in, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Maybe call reserve.
That's where I met your father.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Did you ever have to, behind you is the Edmonds Museum, the Carnegie Library, and on the bottom right-hand corner, those are doors, I think those are the cell doors, if I remember, because I remember hearing, we would ask, is that where you brought guys from time to time?
Oh, we brought them in through the office here, but yeah, you could go in there, yeah.
Those are the cells, I guess,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly.
Well, this door still exists.
Yeah, oh, okay.
This one's been blocked up.
Oh, I see.
And that's the cell there. And then there was 2 cells around the other side.
And in the lower floor, I think the traffic court was held at sometimes in Edmonds?
I suppose, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
about all they had.
And you guys in Terrace, so there was like a city hall eventually during your time period. Was there a traffic court for that as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then in '62,
Mm-hmm.
they built the city hall again. They did the same thing with Edmonds.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
built
yeah.
it.
About the same time period.
Yeah, it was about the same time period.
Yeah.
And they tore down the old building,
Yeah.
and it's now U.S. Bank.
Oh, you're right. I know the address. We have about 5 minutes, Stan, and I was trying to think, you know, you were very well respected for your experience as an officer, and you watched all this change in Mountlake Terrace. Gosh, from 1956 to 1990, there was a lot of change that occurred.
Yep.
And traffic and patterns and people movement and buildings and construction and businesses and things. Thinking back to that, what were some of the any other changes that you can think back that people might not be aware of in the growth of the city?
Well, in what we call the downtown part of Mountlake Terrace, which is 232nd and 56.
Yep.
About 1957, I believe it was, they built a row of stores on the east side of 56, and another row on the west side of 56.
Oh, yeah.
And we had dry cleaners, a television repair shop, which you don't do that anymore.
We
had a variety store, and off and on a drugstore, and this was a spot tavern. It was a Plaza Tavern.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
And then you cross over to this side, and you had in those days you had a drugstore, Summers Drugs. You had Double D Meats, which is still there, and you had a restaurant. Around this corner was where they called it. They had the Gold Room, but this restaurant, when they took that out, they put this Gold Room and a bar in the back of this restaurant.
Oh.
And then on the corner here was the department store, Goldner's department store.
Yeah.
And then you had, I hadn't built that tavern, a spot tavern there. That came later. There was a building there across from what U.S. Bank there. That was a post office at one time.
Yeah. Wow.
And of course, then this was Foodland grocery store, Lucky Store, and now it's Rogers.
I learned to play soccer not too far over there at that big old dirt field over Mountlake Terrace. We all played soccer there. First place in all Snohomish County and everything. And Stan, you know, we're going to wrap it up. If you were to think about any words of wisdom to current high school students, whether they're at Mountlake Terrace or Linwood or Edmonds Woodway or Meadowdale, any last words of wisdom for young high school guys? Because I bet when you were on patrol, you probably encountered high school kids from time to time. Any words of wisdom that you could pass on? You can think of?
Well, that's kind of a hard answer.
I know. I didn't say it was an easy one.
I would say this. We used to have career days.
Yeah.
And in those days, when I had a career day, I told them, learn to use a typewriter. And I had a young man come back about some years later, been in the Army, and he thanked me for that.
Oh, wow.
Now, that's fine. Still learn it, because you're going to need it on a computer.
Yeah. Yep.
The keyboard's the same.
Yeah, that's really true.
And
really true.
You got to get into the computer world. I'm not into it.
Yeah.
I'm a dinosaur.
Me too.
Yeah.
But the qualities that you have, keep a sense of humor about the work that you do.
Yeah.
It's about people skills. It's about getting to know people because that's a really important point you made. In other words, as an officer, I bet you were quite successful. I've heard that from other people.
Join something. The Lions Club, Rotary.
Yeah.
Get into a service organization. I say that.
Yeah.
Sincerely, because I've been in the Lions Club since 1962. And it's a good organization. And not decrying the other ones, they're fine too. But pick something you like, and because today young people are not that interested in joining clubs. Yeah.
But it's fulfilling to give back, and the act of giving back to the community is fulfilling to yourself, and that's why everyone loves you on the Edmonds Museum, and your sense of humor and all that stuff.
Well, I fooled some of the people some of the time.
Well, Stan, thank you so much, and
right,
great job with museum, and thanks for being here today, August of 2012.
Yeah.